So, let's go to that first question then around flavour profiles. And being this Townsville's first comp, as you mentioned, we've got, a lot of new judges. What would you, if we look at the cuts of meat, what's your tips around flavour profiles, especially with your comments around, I know for me, because I grew up eating brisket in West Texas, in Central Texas,
Yeah.
it's salt and pepper. If we're going to get a little bit crazy, we'll put a little bit of onion in there or a little bit of garlic. That's it, So for me, that's my taste. So what's your thoughts and advice there, mate?
Without knowing exactly who the judges will be, and I believe they'll probably be, members of the public, sponsors, things like that, like normal competitions are. I would say very few of them have travelled to Texas and eaten at Franklin's barbecue or eaten Snow's barbecue or eaten traditional, real American-style barbecue.
Yeah.
When people ask us what are flavour profiles, are they regional? So in the US, you've got Kansas City style barbecue, you've got Carolina style barbecue, you've got Texas style. So if you're on the competition circuit over there and you're competing in those areas, you change your flavour profiles to suit. So you might use different sauces. You might put more sauce on. In Kansas City, all the judges that we met when we were over there competing at the Roller put more sauce on, whereas in Texas, less sauce, more rub. So there's some differences in state by state. Australia isn't like that in a sense. We've got city flavour profiles and then we've got regional flavour profiles. So we change ours only slightly, but if we're going to meat stock in Melbourne, it's very different than if we're running a competition in Kingaroy, Queensland, or Townsville. So we like to think that people in Townsville like more hearty, like Nana's roast style barbecue. So more sort of hearty, not so sweet.
Really getting the flavour of the meat, so to speak.
Correct. Particularly if let's say there's a lot of farmers on the judging panel and you can't really predict this and no teams really know who's going to be judging, but you'd sort of say, right, let's say we've got some guys from the country, how would they like their Sunday roast? They like to taste the meat, they'd like a little bit of sauce, they wouldn't like it very spicy, and they wouldn't like it extremely sweet. So taking that into consideration. Whereas you go to the city, they're used to eating, Asian style food and really, spiked flavors, sweet, salty, savory. So you really want to make it a lot more hot and definitely a lot sweeter than you would. So I would say, think about your mates again. What do they eat on the weekends? What do they do? Do they go and get ribs at the pub down the road? What do they taste like? If they like them, they're probably going to like ribs similar in competition barbecue. If you go and go, right, I'm going to follow a recipe from a world champion barbecue guy out of America, it may not go down that well because it might be just a little bit off from what they're used to, and it might freak them out a little bit. At the end of the day, don't try and impress the judges to the point where you're going to get tens. Just try not to offend them, and that's a rule we use.
That's a good
down the middle. So if you get a guy on a table who really likes spicy food, and you put out something really spicy, you get a huge score off him. That's fantastic. But the problem is the other 5 judges on the table might score you lower, which will then bring your overall score down. So I think it's best to be conservative and go down the middle. And again, get more and more people to try your barbecue so that you can, refine your flavors. They might go, no, it's too sweet. So pare that back, or it's too salty. That's my best advice. On cuts, chicken, I would have to say first-time judges would love wings. I think thighs, they're quite hard to cook, and unless you can get them absolutely perfect and they look spectacular and taste amazing, I would say, particularly if it's your first time, I would refine chicken wings to the point where you've got them perfect. Chicken wings can be cooked hotter, which give them a more crispy skin. So instead of doing them we cook everything at 275 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 135 Celsius. I would say chicken wings, feel free to ramp it up to 350 if you can. You get a much better product. They cook a bit quicker, and then you can rest them. And once you get them, and chicken wings, I think, are a couple of bucks a kilo. So I'd be doing them every weekend, like I said. It helps you understand how your barbecue works, what fuels you use, different flavors, and it's something that's pretty affordable. I still love cooking chicken wings at home. Everyone loves them. I put a dry rub on them, put them on the smoker, pull them off, give them a sauce, put them back on, let that sauce glaze set, and then they're ready to go. And like I said, if you're confident you want to do whole wings, for the big bang of theatre, as long as you get 6 in the box, but I would try and get 8 in. Or, try and do a configuration if you go and have a look. Try and do something a little bit different. Because at the end of the day, if everyone turns up and puts, let's say every team, 20 teams put 6 wings in, you're all the same, and it's all pretty similar. So just having a little point of difference. If you go onto the smoking joint, which is on Instagram, they were famous. They were the first ones that started doing 7 thighs, and they did it in a diagonal fashion. So 1, 3, 3, I think it was, and it had this beautiful pattern. And they used to get 10s for appearance every time. And like I said, that's a good start for the following scores. So yeah.
Mike, just while we're on the chicken, you know, it's the age-old question: should I brine or should I inject?
Yep.
Where do you sit on this massive question of brining versus injecting on the chicken?
We don't inject anymore, and we've done quite well. We used to inject our thighs, and we don't really know if it gave us any benefit. We actually, let me see if I've got some.
And while Michael's doing that, folks, if you look on the mantle, you can see just one of his many trophies. We'll get him to show some of those to us. He's quite accomplished in this, and we really do appreciate his time this morning.
No worries. No, look, I can't find it. I remember I was bringing some home from meat stock the other day, but there's a Italian dressing, praise Italian dressing. Whether I'm at home or whether it's a competition, we actually brine our chicken wings for a couple of hours in praise Italian dressing. It's an old barbecue trick from way back, and it adds a bit of flavour to the skin, but it also imparts some moisture because it's vinegar based, and it just moistens up the wings or the thighs that you do. So give that a go. I do have some here. I don't know where it's gone, but I'd suggest, yeah, try brining. It doesn't have too much effect on the crispiness of the skin, but it does add a little bit more flavour to the chicken. Again, that might be the edge you need to be better than the next guy on the table.
So with flavour profile, we've talked about chicken, we've talked about brisket. How about lamb and pork?
So lamb, so pork ribs is pork ribs, and I think everyone's going to love the pork ribs because everyone loves pork ribs, let's face it. For lamb, I think I definitely suggest people try and do a rack of lamb and do some lamb cutlets, however you want to do them. I think some garlic and rosemary flavouring on the lamb will work in Townsville, being sort of not country and rural, but it's sort of outside the major cities. I think cutlets will go down well. I think pulled lamb will go well if it's done correctly.
Yeah.
I'd even say maybe try some lamb shanks. There's a chance that, you know, if you do some lamb shanks that will fit in the box, and that's, again, speak to your butcher and see if you can get them cut down. Go find yourself a box. I think they're 9 by 9 inches, and make sure they can fit in. If you get the lamb shanks cut down so that they fit into the box, I think that will go quite well for lamb. I also think if you can do 2 elements, I think if you do some pulled lamb and maybe some pulled lamb and then cutlets over the top, and if they both taste really nice, I think you'll score really well. Again, the box next to you on the table only has 1 element, just some pulled lamb. You come along with pulled lamb and cutlets, it's obviously going to impress the judges and give you a better score. Appearance, I guess, is the creativity score. And like I said, you eat with your eyes first. So I'm just going to see if I can find. I did have a photo of a lamb shanks box we did quite a few years ago, and can't find it here, but no, I don't have it here. But anyway, we did some lamb shanks. We had them cut down so that the shank ended up being about that big. So a lamb shank's about that big. We had it cut down off the smaller end, the foot end. And then what happens is the meat pulls back. So you've got this little lamb lollipop. And if they're glazed and you know, you cook them very similar to a lamb shoulder, you smoke them, so you get a bit of bark on them, you wrap them, a bit of garlic, a bit of rosemary, a bit of butter. And then once they come out, you sauce them with a lamb sauce. Think about a port lamb sauce would work well. And then that goes into the box. So, but you got to remember, if the bones are too long, they won't fit. And then you've sort of got bones sitting up and it doesn't look really appealing. And if you can't close the box, you can't hand it in.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, on the pork ribs, what's interesting, you know, you're talking about, you know, Kansas City. You know, so spent a lot of my life in Texas. Everything's a very dry rub, and it's almost an insult to use a sauce on some of them. But it's not known. It's, you know, it's the beef ribs, not the pork ribs.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time in Kansas. So for me, a good pork rib is messy. Now, you know, some people, you know, are doing the dry rub, some doing the wet rub. From a competition viewpoint and from a judging, you know, what do you think is going to give you the edge there, or what do you think the judges are looking for?
So one of the things the judges are told, and I'd suggest everyone, if they get the opportunity, read the ABA rules. So if the meat falls off the bone on a pork rib, don't get me wrong, I love it. I'm sure you do, Dennis. Everyone who's listening loves it. That in competition barbecue is actually overcooked, unfortunately. So what you end up with is a score. You get scored down for, I think it's texture. So taste and appearance is fine, but the meat has to stay on the bone. So it can't fall off in the box. That's definitely a no-no, but it's got to stay on there. So you're cooking it up to a perfect point of, you know, and you've got to really practice pork ribs if you can, because if they're too tight, they're terrible to eat. So you will get scored down. But if they're overcooked, they're going to fall off the bone. And the judges are told that it falls off the bone, it's overcooked. So it makes it very difficult. So that's something you've got to really practice. But I would say saucing the ribs, the biggest trick I can give you, and it changed, we could never score well in pork ribs, and we couldn't work out why. All these other teams were beating us. We're all using the same sauces. We're all using the same flavour profiles. You look at them, and you go, they all look the same. You got to remember the first part of the protein that's going to touch the judge's tongue. And that's actually the sliced piece of the pork rib. So if you're slicing pork ribs and you put sauce all over the top, all over the bottom, then you slice them and you pull them up, that exposed meat doesn't actually have any sauce on it. And that's the bit that touches their tongue first. So what people are doing, they're putting a sauce on the inside of the pork rib. So that's the part that they'll bite into on when they put it on their tongue. So once we worked that out, we were flying. We were getting trophies again. So
awesome.
That's a little trick that we picked up overseas. And then we came back and we started telling people, going, I guess we learned. They're like, yeah, we've been doing that for a year. So it's little things like that. So think about that when you're putting it in the box. What's the first part of the meat that's going to touch people's tongue? And on pork ribs especially, quite often no sauce gets put on there. So it's an opportunity if you put a flavour profile on there. I heard of someone once putting a Vegemite reduction on there. Didn't go so well, but you know, you put a sweet sticky barbecue sauce on there, it's going to be, you know, pleasing to eat.